Today we've released a declassified Oversight Majority Staff report that was produced in September of 2020. The stunning revelations that we are releasing today should be of concern to every American. This is not about Democrats or Republicans. This has to do with the integrity of our democratic republic and American voters having faith that the votes cast will count. There is irrefutable evidence that detail how President Obama and his national security team directed the creation of an intelligence community assessment that they knew was false. They knew it would promote this contrived narrative that Russia interfered in the 2016 election to help President Trump win, selling it to the American people as though it were true. It wasn't. The report that we released today shows in great detail how they carried this out. They manufactured findings from shoddy sources. They suppressed evidence and credible intelligence that disproved their false claims. They disobeyed traditional tradecraft intelligence community standards and withheld the truth from the American people. In doing so, they conspired to subvert the will of the American people who elected Donald Trump in that election in November of 2016. They worked with their partners in the media to promote this lie, ultimately to undermine the legitimacy of President Trump and launching what would be a years-long coup against him and his administration. We're here today because the American people deserve the truth, they deserve accountability, and they deserve justice.
So right now, I take a look at the report that she was referencing, and so I just went to the appendix, and so we're going to go through the kind of highlights of it. Because it's like a 45-page report, and it does go into some, details that, I don't I don't want to be here for 2 hours. So I'm going to give you like a kind of like a panoramic view of what was happening at the time, because when Donald Trump won in 2016, it was people they lost their shite because the entire world knew Hillary was going to win. I was one of the very few that said, no, she's not. Anyway, I digress. So this is what you're looking at. Oversight, investigation, and referral. This is September 2020, the Intelligence Community Assessment, the ICA, Russia's influence campaign targeting the 2016 U.S. presidential election. So let's see if we can get into this, because I just want to go through at least so you could see like the highlighted stuff, okay? Appendix A, ICA timeline. November 6th, election eve, IC assessments. Do not mention Putin helping or even showing concern about Trump's election chances. 2 days before American voters cast their ballots for president, a 15-person multi-agency task force known as the Director's Fusion Cell transmitted its final memorandum on Russia's influence campaign to a select audience. The CIA director, John Brennan, shared his memorandum exclusively with the White House, Obama, the director of national intelligence, that is James Clapper, and the director of NSA, I forget that guy, and the FBI, that was James Comey. The memo's authors enjoyed unique privileged access to the most sensitive compartmented intelligence, including reports withheld from the vast majority of intelligence community analysts. These are the people who were inside the inside. Okay, these are Obama's top dogs. The election Eve Fusion Cell memo made no mention of Putin, quote, aspiring, close quote, for a Trump victory. Even as the U.S. polls showed the race to be close, the memo predicted Moscow would: 1. Continue influence operations to undermine the legitimacy of the U.S. electoral process and degrade Secretary Clinton, who Putin expected to win, and her presumptive administration. Now, just stop and think about that. Vladimir Putin was thinking, oh, well, she's probably going to win. Who's going to vote for a game show host? The Apprentice? Give me a break. In fact, I come bearing receipts. This is what the New York Times reported on at the time. Hillary Clinton has an 85% chance of winning. Donald Trump has a 15% chance of winning. Yeah, that was the headline. This was telling you the temperature at the time. Okay, that right there is designed to keep Trump supporters home. It's to demoralize anyone who thinks Trump has a snowball's chance in Haiti. Look, she's got an 85% chance of winning. Why should I go out there and vote? But we went out and voted anyway, much to their chagrin. 2. Seek to publish material that would embarrass the incoming administration and cast doubt on their integrity. The memo concluded that, quote, such efforts would also support Putin's domestic claims that the U.S. is a corrupt, hypocritical, and undemocratic pretender of global leadership. The memo also mentioned the memo's only mention of candidate Trump was to note that Putin did not care who wins the election, according to a close associate of the Russian president, and that Putin said he was prepared to outmaneuver whichever candidate wins. November 8th, Trump wins. The subsequent election of Donald Trump was a big surprise in Moscow, as it was in Washington, D.C., based on embassy and media reporting. Back in the U.S., media pundits struggled to explain how the American voters had chosen an upstart political outsider over the veteran establishment politician, and that's the reason they voted for him, because we didn't want a veteran establishment politician. We already had that with Obama, okay? We got sick and tired of it. That's the reason. You want to know why Donald Trump won? Look no further than Barack Hussein Obama. That's the reason Trump won. December 5th, the House Intelligence Committee receives first post-election classified briefing on Putin's campaign. Putin's campaign. The FBI's Director of Counterintelligence and the DNI's National Intelligence Officer for Russia led a classified briefing and described Putin's leak operation, but made no mention of Putin aspiring to elect Trump. Let me read that again. The FBI's Director of Counterintelligence and the DNI's National Intelligence Officer for Russia led a classified briefing that described Putin's leaked operations, but made no mention of Putin aspiring to elect Trump. It was nowhere to be found. December 5th, Obama's orders a rewrite of IC assessment on Russian activity during the election. The president directed the IC to review their work to date on the Russian influence campaign and quickly produce a new ICA for release in early January before President-elect Trump took office. The ICA would rehash much of the previously published material on Russian. So that's all of it. The president directed the IC to review their work to date on the Russian influence campaign and quickly produced the new ICA for release in early January, before President-elect Trump took office. The ICA would rehash much of the previously published material on Russian activities, but would also include the judgment that President Putin, quote, aspired for Trump to win. CIA would lead the drafter in coordination with the FBI and NSA. They knew that was false. They knew Putin didn't care. In fact, Vladimir Putin, along with the rest of the world, thought Hillary Clinton was going to win. That these people, they got to be brought to justice. 5 CIA analysts wrote this ICA, presenting a draft to the DCIA by the 22nd December. The authors would later express their surprise that management made few changes to their draft during review process. December 9th, DCIA. Brennan orders publication of substandard reporting on Russian activities during the election. This is John Brennan, James Clapper, Barack Obama. These are and James Comey. These are your main actors, bad actors, acting on President Obama's orders. Director of the CIA, Brennan, directed a full review and publication of raw, I think it's human intelligence, information that had been collected before the election. CIA officers said that some of this information had been held on the orders of the director of CIA, while others reporting had, quote, I'm trying to piece this together. Okay, so while others reporting had been judged by experienced CIA officers to have not met long-standing publication standards. So the thing that they put out there as legit fell way below the standards of what they would typically publish. Not met long-standing publication standards. Some of the latter was unclear or from unsubsources or unknown subsources, but would nonetheless be published. They didn't know where it came from, but we're going to publish it anyway. That some of this information had been held on, and I already read that. Some of the latter was unclear or from unknown subsources, but would nonetheless be published after the election. Over the objections, this is what's key. Over the objections of veteran officers on orders of the director of the CIA and cited in the ICA to support claims that Putin aspired to help Trump win. There were veteran CIA officers who objected and said, that's not what it says. Why are you publishing this? Now we all know why they published it anyway. January 5 and 6, the ICI is officially launched. On January 5th, the most sensitive classified version of the ICA was briefed to President Obama and shared with about 250 administration officials and policymakers. On January 6th, the ICA was briefed to President-elect Trump, and the unclassified version was posted to the DNI website. The unclassified ICA key judgments were identical to the classified versions. Putin and Russian government developed a clear preference for Trump and aspired to help Trump election chances when possible by discrediting Secretary Clinton. That is exactly the opposite of what the assessment was. That is the exact opposite. Vladimir Putin believed that Hillary would win. I just showed you the headline. Why? Because every single news outlet was saying she had an 85% chance of winning. This is just an outright lie. That's John Brennan, James Clapper, James Comey, and Barack Hussein Obama. Now, I need to show you guys this because this is the temperature when Donald Trump won.
Russia hacking the election to elect Trump is the end of our democracy. Votes were definitely affected. Russia hacked the election to tilt it to Mr. Trump.
The Russians definitively hacked the election.
Russia did hack the election.
No doubt. The Russians hacked the election.
Yes, Russia hacked the election.
Fact, Russia hacked the election.
President-elect Donald Trump still not sounding convinced that Russia hacked the election.
The president does not want to come to terms with the fact that the Russians hacked the election.
President Trump says he still wonders if the Russians hacked the election.
If you can get him to accept that Russia hacked the election, see if you can get him to accept who won the Civil War.
If he admits it, it casts a shadow on his victory over Hillary Clinton.
Russia hacked the election.
Russia hacked the election.
Russia hacked the election.
Russia hacked the election.
Let's be clear, Russia hacked the election.
Definitively, Russia hacked the election, and Russia is doing it again now.
Election-related cyber hacking.
Cyber hacking of U.S. elections. Cyber hacking of the election.
Russia was cyber hacking the election.
Russia was cyber hacking the election.
The CIA, the FBI, NSA.
All of these intelligence organizations.
17 intelligence agencies.
All conclude that Russia hacked the election.
If we find out that Donald Trump just theoretically was colluding with Russia while they were hacking the election, that is completely impeachable.
This dossier alleged a conspiracy between the Trump campaign and the Russian effort to hack the election.
The director of national intelligence, the head of the National Security Agency, the head of the FBI, all of these intelligence experts saying Russia hacked the election.
The FBI, the CIA, the NSA, the former director of national intelligence, James Clapper, I mean, they've all said this. So to believe that that's wrong, you have to believe they're all involved in an elaborate conspiracy to get Donald Trump.
You would have to believe that they're all involved with an elaborate scheme to get Donald Trump. Thank you, sir. Because that's exactly what they were doing. Just to put a cap on this, because I went really, really long, Hillary Clinton, her email server, which was under subpoena, deleted using something called BleachBit, and wiped her server, knowing full well that they were under congressional subpoena. Okay, that is obstruction of justice, by the way. But James Comey let that go. Okay, the DOJ let that go. Primarily because they figured she was going to win. And we don't want her to be our boss. And we just, launched this investigation. Forget about that. Right? So when it came to Hillary, listen to this.
Let's go through the facts. 17,500 emails that she lied about turning over. The server wipe. Within weeks of there being a report that she had a private server, it was wiped. She thought that C, which stands for classified, stood for cookie or something, which stands for classified. She thought that drone strikes are not classified. She said that the reason she used the private server is for convenience, and that she only had one device. She used 13 Blackberries, let me finish, and 5 iPads. At least she doesn't just stick to either Blackberry or iPad. This is somebody who is absolutely disqualified from becoming president. They destroyed Blackberries with hammers in the State Department. That's not what we wanted the president to say.
Evan, hold on. Can you fact check that? Hang on, Evan Perez. Hammers, fact check that for me, please, on the fly.
Yes, they did, Brooke.
Thanks,
as you mentioned, there were 13 devices, mobile devices, and 5 iPads that the FBI said that, you know, in some way were used with her private email server, and they did, in some cases, just destroy them with hammers when they were done using them.
She said
That's a pretty good way of destroying a device.
That is.
Those are under a congressional subpoena. By the way, those are government properties. You don't get to destroy them with a hammer, but they did it anyway. How many times did she actually serve a prison time? None, because James Comey let her go. The DOJ let her go. It was supposed to be her turn. And how dare Donald Trump get elected? How dare the American people elect this game show host? I always knew that, honestly. I mean, all the stuff that I just read, I knew because I was paying attention at the time. Here's the real deal, though. Most people, most Americans, they don't give a crap about this stuff. Most people don't care about John Brennan or James Clapper. If you were to show them a picture of John Brennan, they wouldn't know who they were looking at. Whose grandpa is that? They wouldn't have a clue. They don't know who Andrew McCabe is. They don't know who Peter Strzok is. They don't have any of these players. This is like for politicos. Guys like me. Guys like my little brother. That stuff, this kind of stuff is for us. Like, we pay attention to this stuff, like the Epstein stuff. People don't pay attention to that. They don't give a crap about that. What they're really concerned with is getting a paycheck. And rightfully so. Like, man, you got to go through to a soccer game and Saturday morning. You ain't got time for no James Clapper. James Clapper, what? What, is that a new brand? Is that a new band or something like that? We ain't time for that. You're going to soccer games, man. You got a life to live. You got to go to work in the morning and somebody's trying to tell you that the CIA is in cahoots with the president and they're trying to undermine and uncoming. It's like, no, get out of here. I totally get it. Most of your friends are not going to get this. They don't have any idea what's happening. In fact, here, before I let you go, where do I have
we've
this?
Released
I think
the
it's here.
declassified oversight majority staff report.
So right now, this is what's reporting on Tulsi Gabbard. From NBC, Trump's intelligence chiefs try to rewrite the history of the 2016 election. That's what NBC is saying. That's what Donald Trump is against. That's what he is up against. NBC says, no, she's trying to rewrite history. He's a Russian agent. All right, I went really long on this one, but hey, it is what it is. Okay, guys, if you like this video, smash the like button and subscribe. And if you're following me on Rumble, please press that follow button. And until the next time, God bless.